Community Hospital Anderson tells us that work on a pandemic-delayed project is soon to get underway. Tom Bannon is Vice President, Community Engagement and Chief Foundation Officer for Community Anderson. He said the community farm was started in 2017.
The farm really came about very quickly, and it grew quickly. So initially, a couple of our staff members came and wanted to do an employee garden just outside of the employee entrance, and wanted to start with 2 beds and raised beds like you would see around communities that have like community gardens. And that quickly became 4, then it became 8, and by the end of that summer we had 24. And then at that point they're saying, let's do a full farm. So we came and they came in and they spoke with us, and we toured Butler's farm, and we went to a couple other different farms in Indianapolis and really liked the idea. And so by the next spring, we started having a farm out there on bigger land and growing a lot of produce. And then we quickly recognized how much it was helping the community because we were able to get out this free produce to people. We were able to get it to patients at community hospital. We were able to use it in our cafeteria at community hospital. So there were so many ways that we could benefit the community with it that we decided we wanted to expand and bring people to the farm. A lot of people like to stop by the farm and just kind of be out there. So we're building a community center now. We're adding 2 greenhouses. We're adding a gazebo. We're adding an area where throughout the farm will be sidewalks, so it'll be easier for people to go through. We already have a beehive out there with thousands and thousands of bees. So it's just going to be a great way for people to come, be a part of it, experience it, get food for free if they need it, and really impact the community.
This expansion is also a significant financial investment in not only the community network, but the community. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so the expansion itself will end up totaling about $2.3 million. And we actually were right on the cusp of getting started in March of 2020. And then, of course, everything came to a halt. And to the credit of Community Health Network and the Community Hospital Anderson Foundation, there was still that interest in seeing this project go forward. We knew it made a lot of sense. Our farm project coordinator, Michael Hodge, joined us in the meantime. He had brought new ideas to even get more produce, so just it made a lot of sense. And this community center that we're going to have there is going to be able to seat 100 people at tables. So it's going to be a big area, and then there's going to be a very nice working demonstration kitchen so that we can do cooking classes. We can teach people how to use the produce. So one of the things we learned quickly is if we give somebody a zucchini and they don't know what to do with a zucchini, that didn't really help them. So we have recipe cards, and then with this demonstration set up, we're going to be able to help them prepare meals so they can see what they can actually do with this and go home and do it at their home. We'll have it so that wedding receptions can be there, graduation parties. The front of the community center will be outside the fenced-in area of the farm, and then as you go through it, it'll be designed kind of like a modern farmhouse look to it. As you go through the back, then there'll be a covered patio area where we can do a lot of outdoor things, and that will be within the farm. So it's really going to help get more produce, but also then more people there. And one of the things we're looking forward to also is eventually adding a truck where we can take some of this produce and drive it throughout the community and go right to the people and give them free produce. One of the things that, our farmer Michael says a lot is, we want to make sure that we don't waste what we have. So we have to have a really good plan to distribute. So we distribute to a lot of food pantries currently and a lot of different areas where we can get the food out to people. But it's not going to make sense if we grow 30 pounds of produce and throw away 12,000 pounds. So there's a lot of logistics to make sure that we get the produce out to the people that need it.
Could you speak a little bit to community partners that you are working with?
So W.R. Duncan & Sons, general contractors for this expansion. Michael Hodge is our farm project coordinator, our farmer here at CHA. He works with some volunteers that come out and do a lot of work. It's been a great way to engage other people in the community that maybe haven't been able to be exposed to things like this. Alternatives Incorporated is near the hospital. In fact, it's on hospital grounds, really, and a great partner of Community Hospital and a great friend. They will bring some of the kids over that are living at Alternatives right now to get some exposure to working with their hands and whatnot. Second Harvest Food Bank, a lot of the churches that we will get food to. One of the things that we started doing pre-pandemic that I would like to see us ramp back up a little bit more is working with the doctor's offices to take produce to their office. So, as you come out to Community Hospital Anderson and you're meeting with, your doctor here on campus or any of our offices, and the doctor says, hey, you really need to get more vegetables in, you need to eat a little bit healthier. Here's something that gets you started. We have a little starter pack that our farm can get to them. Or maybe, take it down to Michael, the farmer, and he'll be able to, we call it a produce prescription. He'll be able to get you some vegetables to get started with dinner at no cost and help you with that. So there's lots of partners that we work with. With the hospital foundation, we always talk about the 3 I's, and that's a lot of the things we do. And it's imagination, inspiration, and impact. And we always encourage people to use your imagination. And we often say, wouldn't it be cool if, and then you fill in the blank. Well, wouldn't it be cool if a lot of the people that have food insecurity, we could get them food at no cost and teach them how to use it, and it's food that's healthy for them. Well, so that's the imagination, and that inspires a farm, and then that's what creates the impact.
I've got to imagine that some of the cardiology and vascular practices are excited about this.
One of the absolute biggest champions and cheerleaders for this is Dr. Preetham Jetty. And Dr. Jetty is very popular around the community. A lot of people know Dr. Jetty. He is so passionate about this cause and will stop by and just say, hey, what's the latest? What's going on? Dr. Leroy Quashie at Anderson University, who has a master's in public health and really understands, everything we do as a community. I just finished my doctorate in public health at IU, and, just to see the impacts and the connections. And Dr. Quashie oftentimes will stop out to the farm and just visit with Michael and look at different things how it can impact. When I was going through my dissertation, I interviewed 30 people. And one person said, and it's so true, in this country, we're great at sick care, but we're not always great at preventing the person from having to be sick in the first place. And that's what public health does. And that's how this farm is a part of that puzzle, to make sure people are getting good quality, nutritious food at no cost.
We also had the privilege of sitting down with Farm Project Coordinator Michael Hodge. All right, tell me a little bit about your history, where you're from, and how you gained an interest in this.
Well, so I'm from Alexandria. I've lived there for going on 8 years with my wife. Her and I met going to school and ended up getting married, and I moved to where she lived instead of her moving to where I lived. But as far as growing produce, it all started growing up. I was 8 years old. The landlord that my parents rented the house from had a garden. I helped them with it, and I was 8 years old, and I'm 33 now. So for the last 25 years, I've grown something every year, and it went from growing tomatoes in the backyard to getting my master's degree from Iowa State in agronomy, and then now here, getting an opportunity to put my impact and my vision on this farm.
How long have you been with the community network?
Just over a year. So May of 2021 is when I started here. Prior to that, I worked at Beck's Hybrids as an agronomist for 5 years. Worked over there and pretty much went there, did my master's work with Beck's, did some research with them and worked on my master's, and then stayed there for 5 years. And then when this position opened up, it's more growing produce, fruits and vegetables is more in line with what I've wanted to do. So when this opportunity opened and I was offered a position, it was really a no-brainer for me.
So obviously you have some things to bring to the table from the standpoint of your previous experience.
Well, I bring the ability and a lot of knowledge in production of fruits and vegetables. In addition to my education, which is agronomy and fruit and vegetable production from a couple different universities, I also own a farm in northern Madison County where we grow produce and go to farmers markets. So the experience I've gained with that and learning things there, I've been able to bring here and utilize different ways to increase the production that we see, that we can see off of the ground that we have, make it more, it's very intensive production, but it's a very productive production.
So as this new venture spreads its wings, will you be doing some education along with the work of actually doing the planting and growing and maintenance?
Once the construction is completed and the building's all open, we plan to have local chefs, local cooks come in and demonstrate how to cook food from the farm. I'd also like to do educational classes on how to preserve food, not just be able to cook it, but actually be able to take it, preserve it, and use it later in time. And then I also want to incorporate starting and growing the produce into that, where we have a class where people come and plant stuff, and then 3 months later they bring what they've grown from that back, and we cook and preserve what they're growing. And in between that time, me being at the farm and other people that volunteer at the farm can be a resource to help them get through challenges they face. A late freeze in the spring that kills all the plants they took home, or a hailstorm, a thunderstorm that hurts stuff. But it's just all things farmers go through, but we definitely want to teach people that.
Could you speak to the size of plot that you're tending to now?
Yeah. So the farm is currently about 2 acres of land. About 1 3/4 of that is in production currently. If that gives anybody a sense of how big that is. So the typical house, I'd say in this area, is probably 1,600 square feet. 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. So you're 20 houses in 1 acre, and we have almost 2 acres in production. In 2021, we produced right at 15,000 pounds of fresh produce from that 1 3/4 acres. The goal this year is to double that. I believe we could easily double that. The construction that's going to go on back there might impact that a little bit. We'll see as the summer wears on, but the goal is to produce 30,000 pounds of food to distribute out in the community.
And what all does that take in? What are some of the different varieties that you have available?
So the primary things we're growing this year are a lot of what you see in the grocery store. So tomatoes are a big thing. Tomatoes are very nutritious, especially when they can be let ripen on the plant. We also have cucumbers, peppers, both sweet peppers and hot peppers. We have zucchini, yellow squash, cantaloupe, butternut squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash. We grow some pumpkins. We're growing some watermelons. And then as the construction completes, we're going to be planting fruit trees. So we'll have apples for sure, most likely pears, peaches, which are a little more hit and miss in the state of Indiana, and then some berries, blackberries, raspberries, stuff like that. Pretty much we want you to be able to come and see what they have in Payless growing at this farm.
A lot of concern that people have are pesticides these days. Could you address that?
Pesticides are something to be concerned about. Now here at this farm, we do everything we can not to use pesticides. The majority of crops we grow can be grown without the use of pesticides if you are vigilant against a few certain insects that we have out there. We also don't want to harm the bees we have out there, so that's something we take into account. But at the end of the day, pesticides only need to be used if you're going to lose the crop. If you put a lot of time and effort into a crop and there's a bug coming that you know is coming, you don't want to spray, but you're going to lose the whole crop if you don't spray. It's much more beneficial to spray one time and protect 2,000-3,000 pounds of produce than it is to not spray and watch it all rot and die out there on the ground.
Speaking of bees, are you going to be doing beekeeping, or are you just letting them do their work?
So we do beekeeping. We have 2 hives currently. John Succo, a local beekeeper, has been helping us maintain those hives. We may add a third one. We have two currently. He donated enough to add a third one. And bees are very important. While honeybees are not native to the United States, they're native to Europe, they are a very important part of fruit production in the United States. And there will be for us too when we have our apple trees back there, the cucumbers that we grow, watermelons, pumpkins, winter squash, those all take some type of insect to pollinate them. And bees do an excellent job of doing that. Not only the honeybees, but our native bee population. With the 2 beehives that we have out there, there's between 100 and 150,000 bees per hive on average at any given time during the summer, during the busy season. During the winter, those numbers are lower as they're just maintaining themselves during the winter. But in terms of honey production, so in 2021, which was not a great honey year, if everyone thinks back, we had a freeze April 26th. I believe we also had 5 inches of snow April 26th, 25th, sometime in that in 2021. So that really took out a lot of the early spring blooms that we had, and we were sort of worried about honey production. But when John harvested the honey last year, he harvested 180 pounds of honey out of the 2 hives. So 90 pounds per hive, which is a very, very good yield of honey. So we actually are planting and planting things as the construction wraps up, and even in the existing beds back there, to attract not only the honeybees that we have to feed them and help them stay in the area, but to attract other native pollinators, butterflies, moths. A lot of times will pollinate things at night. They're very important for flowers that bloom at night and open at night for pollination. We want to plant things out there that not only look good to us when we're walking through the garden, but benefit those insects and help keep those insects coming to us.
What about the water that it takes to maintain a crop like this?
Most vegetable crops take roughly 1 inch of water per week. So if you can imagine, if it rains 1 inch in a week, that's roughly what it takes. 1 inch of water on 1 acre is 27,000 gallons of water. You start adding that up, here in the state of Indiana, we average 45 inches of rain a year. So close to 4 feet of rain. If you put a foot of water on an acre, it's 328,000 gallons of water. So we're in excess of 1 million gallons of water per acre to produce a crop. So water is vitally important, but as we've seen through April here, it can also be a detriment when it rains and we can't get out and do things. We are a couple weeks behind where I'd like to be, getting things planted out at the farm. And it's not a big deal, but it will push back when we expect crops to be ready.
Okay, that leads me to my next question, and that is, when will we start seeing the yield and bounty of this?
We transplanted 900 tomato plants yesterday, and the cherry tomatoes that we planted will be the first ones to yield, and they should be, if all conditions stay right, the second week of July. I think we'll start having a pretty good crop of tomatoes come in. We're 2 to 3 weeks behind where we'd like to be. I'd like to have stuff before the 4th of July is always my goal. It's a pretty good goal in Indiana if you can get tomatoes and sweet corn really before the 4th of July, but it's definitely going to be after the 4th of July this year.
We're looking forward to seeing the improvements to this already beneficial amenity. Tom Bannon tells us that the expansion is expected to be complete around the end of this year or the first of next. Tom Bannon, Michael Hodge, and the Community Farm at Community Hospital Anderson. More of the forces that make our community a better place to live. Our thanks to both gentlemen for their time today. Our community's future depends on organizations like this. The Buzz of Madison County airs every Saturday at 11 o'clock as part of Kevin Smith Reports on 1240 WHBU Oldies 101. Thanks for listening. That's the latest buzz of Madison County.